Thanks, Alex. Alrighty, we'll go ahead and get started. So, welcome everyone to the December 7th Housing Commission virtual meeting. So we're authorized to hold this virtual meeting based on the electronic meetings policy that was adopted by this commission at the September 2022 meeting. Before we begin, I'd like to cover a few specifics to orient everyone to our virtual environment. Today's meeting is available to stream from the county website. Audio of today's meeting is available via phone. If commissioners, presenters, or speakers lose internet connectivity during today's meeting, please reconnect with us by phone. For those joining us through Microsoft Teams, please keep your phones and devices muted until you are called upon. Please turn off sound to any other devices around you to minimize interference. When called upon to speak, you must unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon that is located on your meeting command bar. The moderator does not have the ability to unmute you. If you are dialing in by phone, press *6 to unmute. There will be an opportunity for public comment for those that signed up in advance. Members of the public are encouraged to provide written comments by visiting the Housing Commission website. The meeting chat is active for presenters or commissioners who need technical assistance only. The meeting chat should not be used for discussion, public comment, questions, or requests for more information. Lastly, this is a public forum. Today's meeting will be recorded and posted to the county website. All information associated with today's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to the Freedom of Information Act requirements. Okay. So I would like to ask my fellow commissioners if they're willing and able to please turn on cameras. I think that really helps with engagement since we can't be in person. So appreciate that in advance and looking forward to our discussion. Thanks. So before we get started, I would like to thank Paul Brown for his 12 years of service to the commission. And this is his last meeting as a commissioner. So thank you so much, Paul, for your service. You've just been an incredible housing advocate, and I personally wish I could have interacted with you a bit more, but really appreciate your service. And I'm not sure Laura Saul Edwards is on, but would also like to thank her for her 4 years of service to the commission as well. Last week was her last meeting as a commissioner. So thank you, Laura, as well, for being a great housing advocate for our Arlington community. And lastly, I'd love to welcome Zach Linick to the commission. Welcome, Zach. Great to see you and meet you virtually. Would you like to just take a few seconds to quickly introduce yourself and tell us something about you?
Sure. Thanks, Nikki. Pleasure to meet you and pleasure to meet those I don't know and see those I do. My name is Zach. I'm a lifelong Arlingtonian. My wife and I live in the Claremont neighborhood. And I don't do housing professionally. I do have a policy background, though. And I'm very excited to dig in and get my hands dirty and work with you all.
Great. Thanks, Zach. Appreciate you. Okay. So, Alex, are we good to move to the agenda?
Yep, we are good to go to item 1 and then
Great,
2.
You. Okay, yes. So Alex said that because we do not have any public comment items on the agenda for today. That was item 1. So we can go on and move to item 2, which is to approve the notes from last meeting. Does anyone have any edits to the notes from our November 2nd meeting? Okay. Could we get a motion to approve the notes? Just go ahead and go off mute.
I'll make a motion to approve the notes.
And I'll second.
Perfect. Thank you, Karen and Paul. Okay, so the notes are approved. So we can go ahead and move on to the Barcroft Apartments Affordability and Financing Plan presentation.
All right, thank you so much. My name is Melissa Danowski, and I'm with the Housing Division, and I'm the General Barcroft Project Coordinator for the county. One moment while I share my screen. All right, hopefully everyone can see that. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks. All right. So first, I would like to talk about where we are in the process and what you can expect moving forward. In December 2021, Gyre Lynch Real Estate Partners acquired the property with assistance of a $150 million loan from the county and a $160 million loan from the Amazon Housing Equity Fund. Beginning immediately after the acquisition, Gyre Lynch conducted resident outreach and engagement that helped inform their Master Finance and Development Plan, or MFDP. The Gyre Lynch Master Financing and Development Plan for the property describes the initial Gyre Lynch proposal for how Barcroft Apartments will be renovated or redeveloped in the long term and includes options to deepen existing affordability at the property and pursue other community goals. So since then, staff and the Gyre Lynch team have been focused on review and analysis of their MFDP. This work also included resident engagement that occurred in 2022 at a variety of events and town halls. Gyre Lynch also attended a variety of meetings with the larger community to present their MFDP and receive feedback. More recently, the Gyre Lynch team hosted resident town hall meetings in October 2023 and also attended the November Housing Commission and Tenant Landlord Commission meetings. So at the upcoming December County Board meeting, staff will bring forward staff recommendations for the site-wide affordable housing financing plan component of the MFDP. In addition, the financing commitment letter for the initial renovation phase, which is needed for Virginia Housing's tax credit and bond issuance requirements, will be considered. In order to stay on schedule with the commitment to begin renovating and improving the Barcroft property for residents, a second renovation use permit will be considered at the December County Board meeting and is a following item. Please note the land use analysis component of the MFDP is ongoing, and we will continue public engagement of the land use pieces in 2024. This allows staff to move forward on the financing and affordability aspects for a December County Board consideration, with land use items to follow. Okay, now I would like to take a little time to share some background information on the acquisition of the property by Gyre Lynch. So in fall of 2021, Arlington County learned that Barcroft Apartments was for sale. At the time, the Barcroft property was the largest market rate affordable apartment community in Arlington. And so market rate affordable, or MARCs as we call it in Arlington, means the homes are affordable to low and moderate income households by virtue of the age, location, and condition of the property. There is no local or federal protection that will keep these homes affordable to lower income households. So first and foremost, the sale risk displacement of about 1,100 current residents if purchased by a developer interested only in by right market rate development. Since this was a MARC community, there were no protections for the residents, and all were on month-to-month leases, which further highlighted the urgency and risk of the sale. And the sale process was highly competitive, and it received a lot of interest. So fortunately, instead of being purchased by a developer interested only in market rate development, Arlington County was able to provide a $150 million loan, and the Amazon Housing Equity Fund provided a $160 million loan to assist with the acquisition of Barcroft Apartments by Gyre Lynch. And as a result of the acquisition, all 1,335 units were committed to 99 years of affordability, up to 60% area median income, and no resident was displaced as a result of the acquisition. And back in 2021, the county and Gyre Lynch's top priority and commitment was to no displacement of current residents. So this included freezing the rents at the current level for residents living at the property as of the December 2021 acquisition for all of 2022. It also included capping annual rent increases for these residents at up to 3% starting in 2023. And upon renovation or redevelopment, rents would be capped at up to 60% AMI. The priorities moving forward include, again, first and foremost, a continuing commitment to no displacement of current residents. This includes a commitment to rent stabilization. So as portions of Barcroft Apartments are renovated or redeveloped and converted to low-income housing tax credit financing, those residents earning at or below 80% of the area median income will be able to move back to a substantially renovated or new construction home while maintaining their current rents capped at 3% annual increases. And current residents who may earn above 80% AMI will have the option to stay in an unrenovated home at Barcroft Apartments while also maintaining their current rents, capped at that 3% increase. And in the future, when there are no more unrenovated homes available on site, over-income residents may move to a newly built market rate home while maintaining their current rents. Additionally, Gyre Lynch recognized that a 3% annual increase may not be affordable to all their residents. Property management worked with those residents who shared they were unable to afford a rent increase on a case-by-case basis to waive or reduce their rent increase and to connect them to county subsidy programs and services. In addition to the commitment to no displacement, Gyre Lynch and the county are committed to meeting deepening affordability demands at the property through some different tools. So deepening affordability will be provided through the provision of at least 134 units across the property for residents who earn up to 30% area median income, which is 10% of the total 1335 affordable units. The actual percentage of 30% AMI units will vary across phases. Some may have more than 10%, some may have less based on individual financing needs, but cumulatively, the county and Gyre Lynch have committed to having at least 10% of the units available for residents who earn up to 30% AMI. An additional support of residents with deep affordability needs will be provided through subsidy programs such as housing grants. Gyre Lynch will also provide up to 10% of the CAF units, community affordable units, for permanent supportive housing or PSH clients, which would be phased in upon unit turnover and over the course of the redevelopment and renovation period. Those are in addition to the 134 units committed up to 30% AMI. So lastly, the county is committed to meeting deepening affordability needs while also capturing savings that may be available to manage the $150 million county acquisition fund loan used to help Gyre Lynch acquire the property. These anticipated savings are important due to significant increase in the cost of capital to the county because interest rates have jumped dramatically since the 2021 acquisition. For example, debt service on the county's short-term $150 million line of credit is currently about $9 million interest only. And this is more than 4 times what was originally projected at the time of acquisition in 2021. And the increase is coming directly out of the county's annual Affordable Housing Investment Fund appropriation. This puts a strain on the county's AHIF budget and the ability for the county to undertake new affordable housing projects. The county board adopted an equity resolution in September 2019. The resolution includes in part direction to apply a racial equity lens for every project. Specifically, staff asked the following questions when considering racial impacts of county projects. Who benefits? Who is burdened? Who is missing? How do we know? And what did we do? Columbia Pike, where Barcroft Apartments is located, is the most diverse area of Arlington County. According to data from the 2021 American Community Survey 5-year estimates, over double the proportion of Black or African American populations live along Columbia Pike as compared to the county as a whole. And we know from a resident survey that Gyre Lynch conducted shortly after acquisition that Barcroft residents speak many languages, including Spanish, Amharic, Arabic, and Urdu. Though English is a predominant primary language, 11% of the residents who answered the survey indicated Spanish is their primary language. And Amharic was the next predominant language after English and Spanish. The proposed affordability plan will benefit and enable all Barcroft families to continue to live in their homes at Barcroft. Very low income residents who may not be eligible for county subsidy programs may be burdened or missing. However, Gyre Lynch and the county have committed to rent stabilization for all current residents at Barcroft. In addition, at least 10% of the units across the property will be affordable up to 30% AMI. And part of the allocation process for the 30% AMI units includes prioritizing residents within the renovation or redevelopment phase being undertaken or prior phase according to level of rent burden. The rent burden calculation is the monthly rent of the unit divided by the total monthly household income, which includes any federal, state, or local subsidy programs. Therefore, those residents that have a higher rent burden and may pay more of their income towards rent would be prioritized for the 30% AMI units. And we know this information based on census tract information from this geographic area. And in terms of what we do, the county has the opportunity to consider the proposed affordability and financing plan in light of these potential benefits and impacts. The county loan for each phase will have a term that is coterminous with the senior permanent debt, which is typically 30 or 35 years if financed with Virginia Housing. And the county loan will be a cash flow loan, meaning that payment comes from the cash flow remaining after payment of operating expenses and debt service from their senior loan, the Amazon loan, and project-related servicing fees. And the county loans will carry a 0.5% interest rate. So to help buffer market and financing risk, a county phasing reserve fund is included in the financing plan. Specifically, any upfront savings or excess proceeds that may be obtained after closing of individual phases will be held in a third-party interest-bearing account. And the phasing reserve funds will help ensure delivery of all community affordable units and overall financing sustainability, including the minimum of the 10% of units up to 30% AMI. It serves as a protection if market conditions change midstream. And the first renovation phase contains 93 units. As part of the proposal, the exterior renovations include replacing windows that may not have previously been replaced, restoring brick walls, repairing roofs, and performing other necessary building repairs. Interior renovations include updating the bathrooms and kitchens and new in-unit laundry, as well as upgrading the HVAC and other systems. The use permit for the first renovation phase was approved at the July 2023 County Board meeting. And as part of the renovations, 18 two-bedroom homes will be converted to 14 three-bedroom homes and 4 four-bedroom homes. The units will average up to 60% AMI, and Gyre Lynch has committed to providing 9 permanent supportive housing units upon turnover of current residents. And the loans will carry a 0.5% interest rate, and the term will be coterminous with that of Virginia Housing. As part of the December County Board package, staff is recommending ratification of a HUD Pro Housing Grant application that was submitted on November 2nd, 2023. So in partnership with Gyre Lynch, the county applied to receive up to $10 million in funding to advance a centrally located renovation phase at Barcroft. The funding proposal includes rehabilitation of a future phase of Barcroft apartments that would include about 101 units, and they would average up to 60% AMI rents with a minimum of 10% of the units set aside for those earning up to 30% AMI. It also included construction of a resident community and amenity center and improvements to 2 primary streets. In terms of next steps, Gyre Lynch plans to attend the December 13th Tenant Landlord Commission meeting to discuss their first renovation project on-site tenant relocation plan. County staff and Gyre Lynch will attend the December County Board meeting for County Board consideration of the site-wide affordability and financing plan, the first renovation phase financing commitment letter and term sheet, and the HUD Pro grant application ratification. In addition, the second renovation use permit will be considered. Further engagement on land use items will begin in 2024. Any changes or benefits to the financing from land use tools from the site above and beyond Gyre Lynch's proposal will be revisited at this time. This includes any changes due to market rate development, additional density, or adjustments to the neighborhood's code, conservation areas, or other items. Any amendments to the affordability and financing plan will be brought forward as the land use recommendations are considered by the county board, anticipated for summer or fall of 2024. And with that, I think David Hildy with Gyre Lynch Real Estate Partners has a presentation as well, and I can turn it over to him.
Yes, thank you, Melissa. Share my screen here. Sorry, 1 minute here. It's there it is. Okay. Thank you all for having us tonight. I'm David Hildy with Gyre Lynch Real Estate Partners, and wanted to give a presentation. Melissa covered it well, but just wanted to also run through our affordable housing financing plan and the first phase financing commitment, the overview of that first phase. Just as I start here, again, I know a lot of you know this, and Melissa gave the overview, but just a reminder that we are. This was an amazing opportunity 2 years ago. We are proud and excited to be part of it. As the opportunity to preserve the 1,335 homes for families earning up to 60% AMI for 99 years, and especially the no displacement of our current residents. But that couldn't have happened without the partnership with the county and Amazon. And Melissa also referenced this, but our commitment to our residents, we froze rents in the
David.
first year. Yes.
Are you intending to share something?
I am sorry. Is that not coming through? It says I'm sharing. Okay.
It was just a black screen for me for whatever reason.
Okay, let me try that again. Are you seeing now?
There we go. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay. Thank you for letting me know. You'd be amazed how sometimes you can go on until someone speaks up. So again, the opportunity overview I mentioned. Again, our commitment that we've made, the freezing rents in 2022, and then starting in 2023, the no more than 3% rent increases, and working with the residents case by case basis as we go through this process and get people on a more stable, annual lease, working with them to on those rent increases, and then just getting out there. We brought on a new property manager. We've been very active, getting to know our residents, and that kind of goes to this next slide. The really from the beginning, it's been a resident first approach. We made sure we walked all the homes, addressed things that needed to be done, surveys, got people connected with assistance and services, and lots of engagement events to really get to know our residents, engage them, as Melissa said, to start understanding more about this community before we really started putting pen to paper and figuring out what our future plan is. A year ago, we submitted the Master Financing Development Plan, and in this submission, we proposed or showed financially how we could again commit to stabilizing everyone's rent up to 60%, utilizing financing sources, mainly the 4% tax credits and tax exempt bonds through Virginia Housing, with the funds we have, and then for those earning above 60%, we knew there was more work to be done to figure out options, but would commit to them being on site. The update here is utilizing income averaging as a tool, and as we just worked with the county and Amazon on our plan, we were able to increase that threshold to 80%. That all residents up to 80% will be able to see their rent capped, rent remain the same, capped at 3%, even when they move back into a new or renovated home. And for those earning over 80% who can't move back into a LIHTC project due to the regulations surrounding tax credits, we've committed to move them to an unrenovated unit on site, and also honor that rent stabilization, keep the rent where it is, capped at 3%. And then in the event over the course of time where we run out of unrenovated units, those who are still with us on the property will be offered a unit in one of the new buildings. And then on top of that, we are making the commitment to at least 10% of the homes, that's 134 total, 10% of the CAFs site-wide for residents earning up to 30% AMI. And again, this is just a summary of the affordability plan that we are proposing to you tonight. Again, one of the priorities here is stabilizing rent for all, whether at any income level, for all our current residents, again, to really honor our commitment to no displacement. And then for those under 80 would be getting a new or substantially renovated home. And then the 10% at 30% AMI commitment. And for those who we're also continued to commit with in partnership with the county and Amazon to support residents through the use of the county's existing housing programs and other funds that we may be able to access. And again, just there'll be a mix of renovated and new homes. So there will be certain areas that will be redeveloped. In those, they will be replaced with new construction LIHTC projects. And then for the parts of the projects that will be renovated, those will be remain in place with extensive renovations, full upgrades, interior, and really the washer and dryers, the updated heating and cooling systems, all things that lead to more resident comfort would be part of that renovation. And as a part of this, we've engaged a third-party specialist to help us with as we go through these renovations. We'll need to transfer residents out off within Barcroft, but out of the section temporarily out of their unit. And those who qualify to come back to the LIHTC project will be moved back. Those will get above 80%. We'll move them to another unit on site. We are working on tenant relocation plans for each phase. The first phase tenant relocation plan will be considered by the Tenant Landlord Commission next week. We expect the renovations to be around 6 to 9 months. And again, all the moving expenses will be paid for. We'll have a dedicated team through Housing at Home who will be working with residents on an individual basis. And then just overall on this plan, we really sought to take a balanced approach. We worked very closely with county, Amazon, understand our residents, understanding all those as part of this plan, what we can do, what policy and financial underwriting considerations we can balance. Number one, protecting the residents by stabilizing rents, and then also making sure we're competitive to get the tax exempt bonds and tax credits to fully repay Amazon and the county's loans, and just provide this is a long-term commitment. This is 99 years. So we want to set up projects that will be sustainable and continue to be able to provide this affordability over the course of our commitment. And then we've also looked at other areas in terms of land use tools, which will be a focus of 2024. We'll get into opportunities in our master plan that there could be some opportunities to look at the existing four-base code to achieve our financing plan. I mentioned income averaging that we've used, and then additional sources we've agreed with the county we'll be pursuing other options, 9% tax credits, state historic tax credits on these phases to again enhance, like Melissa said, to be able to return money to the county and also look for other opportunities. And then finally, just a reminder of the first renovation phase. You can see here in Barcroft, Columbia Pike is planned left. It's the maroon buildings, 5 buildings, 93 apartment homes. The use permit was approved in July. Our application is currently under review with Virginia Housing. And the unit mix, you'll see here, we've actually, in this phase, we've created 18 family-sized units by converting 18 2-bedrooms to 14 3-bedrooms and 4 4-bedrooms through the use of additions in certain areas here. So that was one of the goals we tried to achieve in this first project. There will be no 80%, there will be no 30% homes in this section. But as Melissa said, this will be across the site, our commitment. There will be some sites that have more, some that have less. This site's unique in that we prioritize the family-sized units in this phase because they worked well here. And in the future phases, we'll be able to provide more 30% homes as we go through. So that's the end of my presentation, and I guess I'll turn it back and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We appreciate that, Melissa and David. So, Commissioner Surface, I don't want to ignore you, but I think we'll go to the public comments first, and then we will have our commission discussion. So, Anne, do you want to start?
Sure. Hi there, everybody. First, I just want to say, Melissa and David, it just cannot be said enough what an amazing job you guys have done in terms of all the heavy lift that you've done and the commitments you've made. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm with the Arlington Community Foundation, and those of us who've been here for a while know that Barcroft has long been a home to a very diverse community of modest and very low income households. Arlington Community Foundation stands strong in our desire to create a community where our lowest income neighbors can belong and enjoy the prosperity that they themselves contribute to through their hard work. Our foundation was joined in 2022 by 19 other community organizations in a call to action for 255 units hardwired for long-term affordability at 30% AMI at Barcroft by full build out. So up to 10 years out. 255 reflects the current number of households living at Barcroft on the site, making 30% AMI or less. And we know that the current residents are protected by the commitments on rent stabilization that David just mentioned. But we also believe that these deeper affordability opportunities at the site should exist long-term and not expire when current residents move on. We believe that this can be accomplished using the tools that David described, income averaging 9% tax credits, land use tools, and so on. And while we appreciate the efforts to get to this initial commitment of 134 30% units in the presentation, we continue to believe that it is important to commit in writing to an aspirational goal of 255 30% units at full build out in the MFDP affordability mix that's coming up on the 16th for consideration. It's really important, I think, to note that in percentage terms, meeting this 255 goal of 30% units would only represent 7% of the total number of units after we consider the new market rate units that will be added by full build out. As for the plan to include 134 permanent supportive housing units on site, we certainly believe that that is an important feature, but we don't want to conflate or substitute these 134 PSH units for the needed number of 30% units to match the income levels of the legacy tenants and to meet this rare opportunity to significantly alleviate the severe deficit of 30% units in the county. So just bottom line, we ask that there be a commitment in writing to the aspirational goal of 255 30% units at full build out in the MFDP. And if I could just say, we know this is going to take some careful tracking and intentionality over time. So as each new phase comes up, we'd really like to see in a transparent way what kinds of considerations are made to explore the opportunity for each phase to include more 30% units. Thanks.
Thank you, Anne. Alice?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can. Okay, sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties here. I'm Alice Hogan. I'm with the Alliance for Housing Solutions. I too would like to echo Anne's remarks and just reiterate how amazing this project is and what a gift it is to our community that over decades of watching this project, this property, and wondering if we would ever be able to pull it from the market and save these units. The fact that the county was able to move quickly and partner with a great partner, of course, Amazon as well, to make this happen is it's extraordinary. And I never want us to lose track of that. The Alliance for Housing Solutions is very much in favor of this project. We affirm, larger units, 30% units. So many components of this project are exactly, meeting the needs that the county and us as residents have articulated in our affordable housing master plan. We would echo that it would be great if we could continue to work toward additional 30% units to match the population that was on the property when it was purchased. So again, that aspirational goal would be wise to have in the paperwork just going forward, because it's such a complicated project and it'll be going for so many years that it's worth holding on to our initial goals. And the other thing we would like to mention is that over time, you've mentioned perhaps trying to get some cost savings, trying to eke out more units. And one of the things that we see lacking in the plan is a more diverse range of incomes. So 40s and 50s are not really contemplated or discussed at this point. So it would be helpful, as people sometimes do increase their income, where will they fall in between there? So maybe working towards more of a range of rents over time would also be helpful for families. So again, we thank you so much for what you're doing, and we're in full support of your project.
Thank you, Alice. I will now open it up to the commission. I believe Commissioner Surface had her hand raised.
Hi, hi there. I just have a couple questions. I am actually just curious, how many households are currently above 80% of AMI? Or do you have a percentage of residents? Do you have any idea how many people are over income?
Last time again on the self-reported survey we did, it was about in the range of around 60.
Okay. And then my other question is going in the opposite, another direction, is the size of the replacement homes. I mean, I know they're going to be whatever, 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms. Are they going to be the same like square footage, or are they going to be smaller when you do the new construction?
They'll be at least the size of the existing home, if not bigger.
Okay, thanks.
Mike?
Thanks. Before I begin, I wanted to just align myself with both of the speakers' comments and just just say that I wholeheartedly and completely agree. I also just wanted to thank staff and Jared Lynch. This has been a long process for so many of us. I'm just really excited. So thank you for all that you all have done as well. A particular expression of gratitude to Jared Lynch for the family size units, and we don't typically see this amount of family size units, so that really warmed my heart and my spirits. I'm grateful to hear that. I have a two-part question. One was just a point of clarification. I think you said in the first building or the first phase of the renovations, that unit or that phase is not going to have any 30% AMI. Was that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so I guess my follow-up question would be, are there current residents that are living at 0 to 30%, and if so, are they kind of going to another part of the property? Or I guess I'm wondering more about the relocation plans.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So there are residents in that again, we're starting to go through an income verification process. So we will know for sure what the level of those in the 30% range are once we do that. But we do expect that, at least in the self-reported survey, there were some. So in this phase, how it would work, since we don't have 30% yet in our inventory, they would move back to their existing unit. And again, that's why the rent stabilization is important. So they're not going to see any change in their rent that they were already paying. And then once we start delivering 30% AMI units, there will be a process to, let's talk a little more on that, but there's a process that we're working through and putting in place of how the residents on site can apply for those and how that works.
Yeah, it's just a quick follow-up. So it sounds like, I'm just curious about the people that are currently living there. Is the first phase, 100% unoccupied, or where do the people go that, do they live concurrently while the renovation's happening? I need some clarity on that, hopefully.
Yeah, good question. So we've been purposely holding the occupancy at the property lower so that there are available units vacant elsewhere on the site, that we will move them into while their unit's being renovated, and then we'll move them back, again, the income qualified residents back into their units once they're done. So we have built up a reserve of vacant units on site to do that, to enable that.
Okay, great. Thanks so much.
Paul? Paul, did you have a question? Okay, Zach?
So for the 30% AMI units, how are you going to decide the split of bedroom sizes among those? Is it projected demand or current residents? What does that look like?
By phase basis, we'll look at this, but our current underwriting is, really trying to replicate the current mix. So there'd be, the same mix of 30% as there is today in terms of 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms and studio.
Got it. Thank you.
Katie?
Thanks. Yeah, first of all, yeah, I just want to congratulate you on all of your work and this really exciting project. Also, I do agree with both the speakers. It would be great to include that as an aspiration for 255 units at 30%. And my question is, can you go a little bit more into the specifics of how you're planning to try to meet that goal? I know you mentioned, land use and a couple other items, but is there some sort of plan that's going to be in place of like how to try to get more of those units?
Yeah, so I would say that we are going to be beginning the land use process beginning in 2024, and that's when we'll talk about such items as the neighborhood's form-based co-conservation area, any potential for additional density, and so if things are talked about from the land use, when they will be talked about from the land use side, if we'll also be analyzing how those land use tools might impact the financing. And then if there are any changes to the commitment for at least 10% of the units up to 30% AMI, we would come back through that engagement process. We would come back to the Housing Commission. It's anticipated for the engagement to start in 2024 for that.
Okay, thank you. And one more question was related to the permanent supportive housing units. Is that something that is sort of just they're going to be open to be used by people who have permanent supportive housing vouchers, or is it like an active process to try to get those folks into those units?
So for the permanent supportive housing units, we work really closely. It's really our Department of Human Services staff that runs the program, and they would be referring the clients to the units, and the units would be available upon turnover. So, the units would become available as the current residents may move out, and the unit would become available.
Okay, thanks.
Paul, did you have a question?
I do actually. I have a few, so I may ask one or two and then step back and let other folks if I'm dominating. Anyway, David and the rest of the Jair Lynch team, congratulations and thank you. What an enormous effort. So I want to echo that you've heard before, but it's worth hearing again. So how many what you call legacy tenants or households are there right now out of the 1335?
So just to clarify, when we were, I think initially we talked about legacy residents as those at the acquisition. Really, we're making the commitment to current residents. So
okay,
it's still kind of in the 1100. Again, we're keeping the vacancy up, but so it's still in that range. But really, those living there today are we're honoring that commitment to all of them.
So the rent stabilization, is there going to be a point at which you say, okay, now anybody moving in after X point is no longer benefits from that. I mean, that's a tremendous undertaking.
Yeah, that each phase, as we convert to it, refinance it with bonds and tax credits at that point, that will be at that time. That's kind of where those people in there are the ones who get that. If there's new people move out and there's new units, those residents would take the units at the AMI range, 60%, or region income averaging, some at 70, 80, some at 30. So
Right.
So it's really up to the time of the phase going forward.
So anybody moving in now would be protected until their particular phase undergoes renovation.
Correct.
Is that right?
Correct.
Wow. How do those current rents compare to, say, 60% AMI rents?
They're approximately 45 to 48% AMI.
Wow. Again, wow. And on top of that, you're committing to at least 10% at 30% AMI with no promise of housing vouchers or housing grants to support that. Presumably the PSH clients would have rental assistance. That's extraordinary. So tell me if I'm digging too much, but I'm wondering about the Amazon money. Is it due to be repaid anytime before the county's money is?
No, in our agreement, the loans are coterminous with Virginia Housing.
So the Amazon money's loan will be coterminous with the eventual first mortgages for these projects. Is that right?
Correct.
Excellent. Okay, that's fantastic. Melissa, I guess this question would be for you. Is there a sort of a cresting analysis that y'all have shared and can share, taking into account these additional commitments that Jair Lynch is making?
We are looking at things such as cresting. I don't have that information for the first phase in front of me, but we do look at that, and more importantly, we look at the ability for the loans to be repaid at the end of the loan term. And under this proposed financing proposal, it shows that the loans can be repaid at the end of the loan terms.
Okay. Wow. Great. That's all fantastic. Surprising, but great.
I saw Alice had put something in the chat about explain cresting. Probably for me too. The cresting analysis. What does that mean?
So that typically means when it's less of an issue here where the interest rate is only 0.5%, but in when the interest rate's a little higher, these loans tend to accumulate interest over time, and so the balance grows. But as income grows, they can gradually be retired and show that they can eventually be repaid. But so you're just taking on so much. It's going to be a big nut to carry. So thank you again on behalf of the county.
Any other questions, commissioners?
This is Doris Ray. When you finish with commissioners, I do have a couple of questions, sure. But I'm a liaison, so.
Sure, Doris, go ahead.
Go now? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, thanks. Okay, I want to add the applause and accommodation from the disability community about this project to begin with. And then I wanted to ask something regarding what I heard in the financing plan. You mentioned that you're going to start with the initial renovations, and I'm assuming, so correct me if I'm wrong, that the apartments there are going to be garden style apartments and walk-ups. But nonetheless, there may certainly be some currently at ground level. And then as you go through renovating more of them, there'll be more ground level until you get to new buildings. But in existing buildings with significant renovation, the Fair Housing Act requires that, like when you're converting apartments from 2-bedroom to 3 or 4-bedroom, and there's significant construction and such, are those apartments going to be meeting Fair Housing Act standards, accessibility standards? And then, or are you going to do bump outs that might be fully Fair Housing Act accessible? And then you mentioned in the funding plan applying for, it sounded like applying for funding from HUD, and HUD's involvement in funding for construction would trigger Section 504 requirements for 5 to 7% of units to be UFAS accessible. And so I'm wondering whether you're going to graduate in those various levels of accessibility, and even as you're just starting the renovations, particularly because if not in the very first building, some of the buildings may have residents that already need accessible facilities, and accessibility modifications may have already been done. But if the apartments are made at minimum Fair Housing Act accessible with doors wide enough and the rest of the requirements, they would be useful to people existing in those buildings to come back, and or they would be helpful to people who would want to age in place and might be close to that aging process. The last thing that I wanted to ask about is the permanent supportive housing, because DHS eligibility requirements, they use the permanent supportive housing for people with IDDD, and many of those folks have physical disabilities in addition. So I'm wondering, are those units that are designated permanent supportive housing are you ensuring that they will be physically accessible for current and or at least potential tenants coming along?
Yes, thank you, Doris. I can, unless you want to.
Yeah, maybe in regards to the permanent supportive housing, that is something, again, that we work closely with DHS on, and sometimes the permanent supportive housing units, oftentimes they are also the accessible units. So we will be working in close communication. So, there's a lot of factors at play, especially for the renovation projects on this. PSH units will be available upon turnover of current residents, so that will have some impact too on what units in terms of the accessibility for the PSH units. But I think this will be talked about a little bit more in the second renovation use permit. Gyre Lynch is planning to do some accessible units as part of that phase. In the first renovation phase, the topography, there were just other topography and site challenges to doing accessible units in the first phase. It just wasn't economically feasible. But David, if you would want to add on to that.
Yeah, and just going back to starting with the first phase, as Melissa said, we did extensive studies to try to find ways to, again, really the challenge is finding the accessible route to those units, because really none of these units are on ground level. You come in and you go up steps or down steps. So it's quite a challenge. We have to find just the right locations on the site to do that. And then, Doris, you mentioned the HUD proposal. We actually selected that. We selected that section very carefully so that we knew that there were enough that we could satisfy Section 504 and the minimum 5% accessibility. So in that section, we had identified there were a couple units that were, typically the basement units. Some of them do come out on grade in certain locations, so we tried to identify those. And as Melissa mentioned, when we get to the second use permit, we did find opportunity there to do 5% or 4 units on that one. So we are looking at every single phase, looking at opportunities to provide accessible units, and then in the we agreed. The county asked us to do 10% in the new construction, which will be elevated, your typical multifamily building. So we've committed to do 10% in there. To, again, looking at this as a whole, that we do have places that we can provide those accessible units.
Yeah, I see that, and the one thing that I was concerned about, and you mentioned that before in other meetings, but the one thing that I was concerned about is this first set of renovations is going to have larger family-sized units, and there should be an opportunity for individuals with disabilities, either heads of household who have disability and are raising children, or members of families where perhaps the parents are not don't have a physical disability or a sensory disability, but who have other members of the household who are. So so where will the larger accessible units come in?
In our new construction building, or if we find opportunities as we go through each renovation phase, sometimes there are opportunities to expand units on that ground, if there are ground level units. So we're looking at all of that as we go phase by phase here.
Okay. Yeah, I just hope that's an affirmative because effort, because I do know that there are some families over there who actually the principals, the parents are people who are using wheelchairs and are in existing units now. So I just wanted to make sure that thought is there, that there will be an equal chance to get the family-sized units for people with disabilities. Thanks. And I really do appreciate what you're doing. So thank you.
Thanks, Doris. So I have a question. I think some of our community advocates were wondering where the funds for the bringing the permanent supportive housing units down below 60% AMI came from.
Permanent supportive housing units are actually included in almost every affordable housing project that I've worked on in my time at the county. There is a budget, an annual budgeting process for those. Fortunately, I don't have much more information than that, but it is, part of the DHS budgeting process.
Okay, are they always below 60% AMI?
Usually, the permanent supportive housing units would be up to 60% AMI. They've been sometimes at various income ranges below that. But I think typically the permanent supportive housing units wouldn't be over 60% AMI.
Okay. I think
I'm sorry. They have a rental subsidy, I think. And so it's effectively, they could be for 0% AMI, people with zero income. So.
Yeah, sorry to clarify that. The rent subsidy comes in, the unit could be affordable up to 60% AMI, but the PSH client would only pay what they can afford. So the subsidy comes in and pays the difference between that 60% AMI rent level and what the client can afford.
Okay. I think some of our community advocates just wanted to make sure for those PSH units that are below 60% AMI that it wasn't coming from the housing grant pool to be able to do that. Okay.
It's separate from housing grants, yes.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. All right. Any other questions from commissioners? Okay, so maybe we could talk a little bit about, I think everyone is super excited about this. I don't think we'll have a lot of comments in our letter, but Anne and Alice and Katie also brought it up. I think we would probably want to recommend to the board to include that 255 aspirational goal. Does everyone agree that's something we want to do? Does anyone have any concerns about that? I think Alex sent out the letter from the Arlington Community Foundation that showed how many organizations support that. So it seems to have wide community support, and certainly seems like something as a housing commission we would want to support, but definitely want to make sure that's comfortable with everyone.
So I would say, yeah, I don't think I would support that. I mean, I feel like that Jared Lynch has taken on an extraordinary goal, and if the idea is the units would be committed at 30% AMI without subsidy, I mean, we're tying their hands for 99 years. And 30% AMI is not a break-even rent. I mean, it doesn't pay debt service. It barely pays operating expenses. We expect these to be kept up in high quality for the life of the buildings. And so, you know, I think a 10% commitment plus 10% permanent supportive housing plus rent stabilization on rents that are effectively below 50% AMI right now is more than enough. So I think we need to give them the flexibility to operate the property and maintain the high quality housing over time. So I would not be in favor of that.
Okay, thank you, Paul. I think maybe just to be, it sounds like it would be an aspirational goal, so it wouldn't be holding them to anything. So just wanted to add that in case that influences your thoughts. Anyone else have any thoughts? Sounds like we might need to vote on this.
I was just going to echo Paul's comments because I felt likewise. As I listened to Jair Lynch, I'm not quite sure how you're able to pull off everything that you've committed to, quite frankly. And at the end of the day, we want our developments to be able to pencil out and pay their debts. So I also hear that it is an aspirational goal, but I also don't like us to put things out there that we know from the get-go are highly unlikely to be possible in the real world. So that's just my perspective.
And I guess I would ask David, what does Jair Lynch think about the aspirational goal? Is that something y'all would buy into? I mean, if you're willing, fine, but you know, I wouldn't want to force it on you.
I think you're both. I appreciate both of your comments because that does, you know, you obviously show that you understand how affordable housing finance works. We did test as deep as we could go, and like you said, there's a lot in here, and you know, the more you give, the more it compresses your cash flow, which does a couple things. It doesn't allow you to raise as many bonds. It doesn't allow you to have cash flow for in the future for reinvestment. So I think your comment of this is a 99-year commitment. We need to have a sustainable approach. So we're not coming at the end of a term and we're like, we don't have money. What's going to happen? You know, and like we said earlier, we really, again, since this is a long commitment, we want to commit to repayment of all these loans. We don't expect the county to be like, okay, we overcommitted, so we're going to wipe away your loan and give you a new loan. We don't think that's a sustainable approach. So that is why we, again, we looked at it, we tried it. There's more technical issues like, you know, with Virginia Housing that you start to not be as competitive with them, and that means projects don't go forward. So I think, in our, we definitely are trying to do as much as we can. We have put forth a plan that does a lot, like you guys have recognized, and just all, yeah, I think that it would be very difficult to go, very difficult to, again, in this environment, look for that. And I think just in general, the 30% units are very expensive, as you've recognized, and that's why we don't see a lot of them.
Thanks, David and Paul and Margaret. Appreciate the discussion on this. I guess just to play devil's advocate a little bit more, I know the words sustainability has been talked about, and I think we need to think about sustainability for our community. And again, I know Paul acknowledged it already, but it would be aspirational. So it would ask Gyre Lynch and the county to look at ways to do it when it forced them. So to me, it seems like it would be a missed opportunity to not include it. But I'm not a housing finance expert. So I do appreciate this discussion. But I guess I'm wondering why we wouldn't if it doesn't hold them to it. Katie, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I guess I would also support including it as an aspiration, knowing that, it may not be ultimately achieved, but at least doing our best to do, as I know you all have already done, but continuing to try to strive toward doing more if possible as other opportunities come up. As you mentioned, if something comes up with the land use plan where there's more financing available, because as Nikki mentioned, in terms of sustainability for the community, if those 255 units are not met, that means that the number of people at that location compared to now in the future will be fewer who will be able to live there with a 30% AMI income.
Yeah, and if I could just add, I think we were intentional with the minimum commitment, because we want to put out something there we can commit to and hit. And absolutely, we're going to be working with the county to see if there's other opportunities, and especially as we get, we'll get better information. Our ultimate goal is to take care of our residents, and as we get, we'll get better information on what the need is out there. Again, as we go through the income verification process, and we've, whether that's 255, or a different number. But we're committed to working with the county, and the county's committed to us to find ways that we take care of our residents at Barcroft. That's ultimately the goal, ultimately what we're working towards. And we're excited to deliver that, deliver them these new units and do that. And we want to make sure we have the path for it. So again, I think our commitment is a minimum, and we will work with the county and the community as we go, as things change, as new programs may come out in 5 years. We don't know the future. So that's all I can add.
Thanks, David. Yeah, I think you guys have done a great job, and I don't think we doubt your commitment to the community and the Barcroft residents. I think just hearing that you're saying that commitment is a minimum, in my head, I'm thinking, well, why not put it in writing, but I don't want to push too much. So why don't we take a vote on this? It sounds like we definitely have some differing opinions, and it sounds like we should take a vote. So maybe I will do roll call on it.
I think we need a motion, don't we?
Thank you. Yeah. Do you want to make it? So wait, let me back up. I think we should take a vote on if we're going to add in a 255 aspirational goal into our letter, and then we'll take a vote on recommending approval of the plan. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so why don't we do the 255 first? So Commissioner Paul Brown, do you vote to?
I vote no on that.
Okay, Alex, can you keep count?
Yep.
Okay, great. Commissioner Escobar?
I vote yes.
I don't believe Commissioner Edwards is here, no longer serving. Commissioner Heminger?
Yes.
Commissioner Macbeth is not here. Commissioner McGilvray,
Sorry, I didn't unmute. No.
thank you. Commissioner Montgomery, okay. Commissioner Norris,
No.
was that no?
That's correct, sorry, no.
Commissioner Rubicalva,
So I'm just for clarification, we're adding what again?
so we're right now we're
I know the 255, but like, did we have a specific to say like aspirational to 255, or like it needs to go up to 255, or?
yes, so let me just be perfectly clear. It would be aspirational. We would not be holding Gyre Lynch or the county to 255. They would only be hold to the 134 that is currently in the plan. This would be an aspirational goal that would just be put in writing that would ask them to look at that in the future.
And they confirm that it, like, right now their minimum like is 134. Like,
Correct.
they're going to hit that base, which is fantastic.
Yes.
And I'm gonna refrain from this. I'm gonna refrain.
Okay, so abstain, sure.
Yeah, abstain.
Commissioner Surface,
No.
Commissioner Wagner,
Yes.
and Commissioner Linick.
Yes.
And I myself, Commissioner Blake, vote yes. Okay, Kellen, I was not counting. If you could let us know what the results are.
Yeah, so it is 5-4 with one abstention, so that would pass.
Okay. Okay, so we will include it in the letter, but really appreciate all of this, the discussion tonight. I clearly incorrectly assumed, and so I'm still pretty new to this, and just really appreciate the diversity and discussion, and Gyre Lynch too, and Melissa for adding your voices there as well. Okay, so now we can move to recommend to the county board to approve the plan with our letter and our 255 aspirational goal. So do we have a motion to recommend to the county board to approve the plan?
So moved.
Thanks, Katie. A second?
I'll second it, Nikki. Oh, sorry.
Okay, maybe Sarah. And then Alex,
Yeah.
do we need to do roll call for this one as well?
Yeah, if you could, that'd be great.
Okay, so Commissioner Brown,
Abstain.
Commissioner Escobar,
Yes.
Commissioner Edwards, or excuse me, no longer serving, Commissioner Heminger,
Yes.
Commissioner McBeth is out, Commissioner McGilvray,
And just to clarify, this is just to approve their plan. Yes, we have our letter attached as well, but this is to approve their plan, correct?
correct.
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Montgomery,
Absent.
thank you. Commissioner Norris,
Yes.
Commissioner Rubicalva,
Yes.
Commissioner Surface,
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner,
Yes.
and Commissioner Linick.
Yes.
And I myself, Commissioner Blake, also votes yes. So Alex, that passes as well, correct? Okay, I'm going with yes. All right. So I think we are good on item number 3. So moving to item number 4, the Barcroft Apartments second renovation phase, we can start with the staff presentation.
Hi, good evening. I'll pull up my presentation very quickly. Can I just get confirmation that everybody can see the slides?
Yep.
Wonderful.
Yes.
So good evening.
Yes.
My name is Olivia Sontag with the Planning Division, the Arlington County Planning Division, and I'll be providing just a very high-level overview of this next phase of renovations to buildings within Section 4 of the Barcroft complex. I'm going to reserve kind of the details for Mr. David Hildy, who'll be giving an applicant presentation following this one. So what's before you tonight is a neighborhoods form-based code use permit for these renovations. The proposal for consideration is preservation and renovations to buildings 32 through 34. They're located within Section 4 of the overall complex. They're also requesting modifications pursuant to the Columbia Pike Neighborhoods Form-Based Code for setback and parking requirements for these existing buildings to remain. So you guys just spent some time looking at the Barcroft property, but just to put some of this in context, the specific site is within the Neighborhood Special Revitalization District. And then within that district, we are specifically in the neighborhoods area, which is demarked in blue on the screen. And then you'll see the commercial areas noted in orange. And the specific portion of the property is noted in red. So diving a little bit deeper into the plan, this is the central sub-area regulating plan, which for the most part encompasses the Barcroft property. You can see outlined in kind of most of the highlighted color here is the neighborhoods plan, and there are some small sections kind of in this light orange color that are part of the commercial neighborhoods plan. So again, we're focusing on the neighborhoods area for this specific proposal. The site is again marked in red in this kind of triangular feature down here. The site is within what's called a conservation area, and the primary purpose of the conservation area is kind of twofold. One is for the preservation, the historic preservation of these buildings, but it's also for the preservation of affordable housing. So the entire site is within that conservation area. It does not include any other building envelope frontages, such as, for example, other portions of the site have. There are no special preservation, natural preserve areas or open space areas on this designation. So the map, as far as the requirements go, are fairly simple for this specific site. So diving a little bit deeper now, again, I'll keep this high level. David will cover a more detailed overview of the proposal, but the unit count does remain the same at 77 two-bedroom units. 4 of those units are proposed to become type A 2-bedroom units. As part of this proposal, 4 parking spaces will also be converted to ADA parking spaces, and then pathways will be provided from those parking spaces directly to access these units. And then again, they're also requesting those modifications for all of the existing parking and then the setbacks for these buildings that all remain. So again, no additions proposed on this section of the renovations. So the primary focus of our review were the conservation areas, and this item did go to the Historic Affairs and Landmark Review Board to review any of those changes to the exterior. So again, a quick overview of our review schedule so far. This item went to the Design Review Committee, which is a committee of the Historic Affairs and Landmark Review Board. It was reviewed by the HLRB twice with a favorable recommendation. It also went to the Form-Based Code Advisory Working Group, who also gave favorable recommendations. They had some questions about the details of the type A accessible units, whether or not the doors would be sized appropriately and they'd have levered handles, and the applicant did confirm that they would. And then this item went to the Planning Commission last night with very little discussion and unanimous recommendation for approval. and it's scheduled to go to the county board, believe on the consent agenda on Saturday, the 16th. So with that, I'm going to pass this off to David for the applicant presentation.
Great, thank you, Olivia. All right, I'll confirm like you did. Can everyone see the presentation?
Nope.
So
No. Let's see.
Now
There
I
we go.
can.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, now you can.
Yes.
Okay, just a time delay. Okay. Okay, great. So yeah, as Olivia said, this is the second renovation phase. It's in section 4, kind of at the tail end of our property along 4 Mile Run. Again, here's the Olivia showed this as well, the regulating plan, the neighborhood's form-based code. It actually bleeds off the page. This is so big. It starts there and kind of goes down to the very tip of the Barcroft project. Here's the kind of close up of these two buildings. It's three buildings, buildings 32, 33, and 34, all 2-bedroom units in this section. And the proposed renovations, obviously the interior renovations we talked about, and then there's also and the use permit really goes into the exterior building renovations. As Libby mentioned, no bump outs in this section. We also have landscape and site improvements, and then the improvements related to the converting 4 existing 2-bedrooms into type A accessible units in building 33, which you see highlighted here in the yellow orange. Here's a close-up of the site plan here of, we were able to, again, multiple factors go into this. It's one, finding the units that are close to ground level, and then finding parking that's accessible to there, and then finding that route. And this, we were able to find this on the back side of building 33 in these 2 sections. And then also providing the proposed amenity area that would be accessible to those. And here's just a rendering of the back here. This is the back side of those units. So you can see on these units, the grade actually comes up here. So that's why we were able to create walks that could reach here to these units and make sense. And you'll see here we're adding canopies on these back units to provide a cover as the residents would be at their door here. So that's the summary. I want to keep it quick for you guys, but that's the overall. And again, happy to answer questions related to this as well.
Thank you, David and Olivia. Alex, we did not have public comment for this section. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we can open it up to the commission. Commissioner Ubakava.
Hi, quick question. Why are these designated as historic? Like, just for my information, do we know that reason? Because I mean, I get some of these are built for, but was it for 1940s and stuff? So some of these buildings are like 80 years old, whatever. But what's significant about that location? And yeah, instead of just kind of raising it and building actual like good size units, and more like more ADA compliant units than just for 2 buildings. Sorry, it was like a multi-part question.
Yeah, happy to maybe partially answer the first question on. I think it was back in. Maybe Melissa can help me. I think it was back in. There was I think the county worked on a designating this site. I think it was been a target of the historic preservation staff. I think back in as early as 2007 was identified, and a draft nomination was prepared in the form-based code. We also it's been identified as each time we go through a use permit, we have to go through the HALRB. So there's a couple factors there that have been in place that we've been working around, but That's all I guess I can comment on that. And then the second part related to when we look at this, it's not just the historic preservation that limits the ability to demolish and, on the extreme, demolish everything, rebuild back. There, with that as well, there is a financial consideration. With the purchase of this property, these units were purchased. So if you demo a unit, that's the land value you have to support to build a new building. So just to give you a rough number, and we'll get more into this in 2024 in land use process, but there needs to be a multiple of density that can be achieved to be able to support demolition and building. So again, we'll get into this more in the 2024 land use process, but we've done a lot of analysis on that, of where that's possible, where that's is not. And so that will be part of our conversation of where we can shift maybe some of those conservation lines to do more new construction versus renovation.
No, I definitely appreciate that. Like I know people love to throw around the term like historical buildings and stuff, but historical buildings need a lot of upkeep and a lot of maintenance and stuff like that, and and costs. So just curious of why that section is called like historic than other places. But I appreciate it. Looks great overall. Thank you for the presentation.
Any other questions from commissioners or Doris?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Okay. Could you clarify so that I think it was the building with the address 33 or something, where you're going to build the type A units, so you're converting two bedrooms units to how many type A and what size units?
So in this section, they're all 2-bedroom units. So we're taking a total of 4 existing 2-bedroom units, and we'll be adding the exterior entrance on the back. We'll be making sure the interior follows all the guidelines for accessibility. So it will be within the same 2 bedrooms, but we'll be reconfiguring, adding the exterior entrance to make these accessible units.
So it's
a total of 4 2 bedrooms.
4 2 bedrooms, and only 2 of them will be type A, or
4 total. So we're just doing a 1-for-1 conversion. Yeah, just converting the unit.
Oh, okay, and it's because of the siding that you would be able to build accessible routes of travel to these units. Yes, is what I'm hearing.
Correct. Yeah. We need to build those new entrances on the exterior. Again, since the entrances have the the entrances are not at ground level. You have to go up to the units. So we have to create those exterior back doors to be able to make these accessible.
Right. So they're kind of like what I guess at Buckingham were called bump outs. They're kind of bump out units.
These are not bump outs.
Yeah,
these are just existing units that we found the ability that the grade was close enough to that ground floor elevation that we could put an exterior door into it, so you could get that accessibility from the
Yeah. Okay. And so the laundry rooms, or they're going to have in-unit laundry rooms, laundry, right?
Correct.
Okay. And so, how you said the common units or amenities will be accessible as well?
Yeah. So in these buildings, there are no. The only amenity space is an outdoor amenity, which will be accessible.
Okay. and so how does people get their mail?
There will be accessible mail, most likely through exterior mail locations along the accessible route for the property.
So
Yeah.
everyone else in the building has a common place, but they'll have their own, is what I think I heard.
Correct. And then also the access to the trash is also the other, as I'm sure you know, it's the other factor that we have to make sure works.
Yeah, thank you for that, and thank you, Madam Chair, because I was just trying to get in my mind, and some of these things become very important when people move in, whether they have access to, all the amenities and common areas that others have. So, where do they go? So, is there the big thing is where people are going to pay their rent, right? Or do they do it online or something?
Yeah, the main leasing office is up on George Mason, which is accessible.
So all of these accessible units will have an accessible path of travel to the rental office, I think is what I heard.
Well, it's on a different location of the site, so there would be, driving to that accessible location, getting the accessible space there, and accessing.
If they drive.
Yeah. Otherwise, again, I know that property management is very can make accommodations if needed.
Sure. So which you were going to use the building code design for type A's, or are you going to use like UFAS or something?
The building code, yeah. This will not be a HUD financed project, so we'll be. I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert on the differences, but
the size of the rooms and maneuvering space is often the difference. That's why I was asking. But
okay, yeah, I don't know for sure that answer, but I can get back to you on that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Doris. Anything else? I know we're at 8:33 and we still have a couple items, so I want to keep us moving, but I want to give folks a chance to ask any questions on this phase 2. All right. Well, do we have a motion to approve, or it's not approve, to recommend to the county board to move forward and approve the phase 2 renovation use permit?
And
Chair,
Nikki, if I
sorry,
could
go ahead,
in
Alex.
real quick. Olivia does have some language that she can throw up on the screen here for you to make a formal motion on, so that the language is correct for the letter. So Olivia, do you want to share that?
Yes, no problem. And this is just our recommended motion. So
Yes, staff's recommendation.
Staff's recommended motion.
All right. So whoever gives the motion to approve would read this, correct, Alex?
Yep, exactly.
Okay. So I have a commissioner who would like to do that.
Okay, I move that the Housing Commission recommend the county board approve the subject use permit in accordance with the Columbia Pike Neighborhoods Form-Based Code for preservation and renovations to the Barcroft Apartments buildings number 32 through 34, located within Section 4 of the overall apartment complex, with modifications pursuant to the Columbia Pike Neighborhoods Form-Based Code for setback and parking requirements associated with the underlying zoning district for the existing buildings to remain subject to the conditions of the staff report.
Thank you, Katie and Olivia. We have a second?
Second.
Great, okay. And I believe we need to do roll call, right, Alex?
Yep.
Okay. Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Escobar?
Yes.
Commissioner Heminger?
Yes.
Commissioner McGilvray?
Yes.
believe Commissioner Montgomery is absent. Commissioner Norris?
No, I'm actually here.
Oh, hi. Hi.
Hi. So, yes.
Sorry about that. Commissioner Norris?
Yes.
Commissioner Bubakava?
Yes.
Commissioner Surface?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner?
Yes.
And Commissioner Linick?
Yes.
And I myself, Commissioner Blake, votes yes as well. Okay, so that should be good to go. All right, thank you to the county staff and our developers here tonight for joining us, and all of the folks who spoke up on the Barcroft items from the community as well. All right, so moving on to item number 5, our discussion of the 2024 commission priorities. I think we really need Kellen, our great chair here, to really guide us. But I think he wanted us to just start thinking about it a little bit and get some kind of drafts down. I know it's late. We're getting toward the end of the night. But I know some things that, I've thought of is maybe doing some like best practices analysis from other cities that are housing champions. I think there could be some opportunities for us to just take a look and see what some best practices are in the housing policy space, and just making sure our recommendations are in line with innovation and just kind of best practices and gold standards. I know Kellen, equity is a priority for him, so I'm sure he'll talk more about that. I think another thing we've also talked about is kind of coming up with a list of questions that we can send to developers and staff in advance, not only to help move the meeting along, but just making sure that we're always covering certain priority areas that we have a commission have, before they come and speak to us. And if we can get some of those questions answered in advance, it also might allow us to have more robust discussion when we can have live follow-up. So maybe I'll stop talking and see what others have. Mike?
So I think you all know what I'm going to say. I'm going to beat the drum, but I really think we need to focus on the affordable housing ordinance. I was told earlier in this year that the likelihood that the General Assembly would switch was not likely, even though I disagreed at the time. I think that there's a lot of background information that we can do that doesn't necessarily need to be, public facing, perhaps in a, subcommittee, just really getting all the research together, the analysis. But, that amendment has not been, or that ordinance, I'm sorry, has not been updated in some time to account for just even inflation, or even if the county's getting a fair deal. So that's my piece. I would love to see us focus on that next year.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I agree. Commissioner Wagner?
Yeah, thanks. Another thing that I would love to see us work on next year would be kind of working on the intersection between climate and housing. I've seen other areas working on things like incentives for using the Inflation Reduction Act tax credits to do electrification and energy efficiency upgrades in affordable housing complexes, kind of like what they're doing at Barcroft with the heat pumps. And that not only it helps residents have a healthier environment by not breathing in gas, having lower gas or utility bills, as well as helping our climate. So I'd love to see us sort of collaborate maybe with the C2E2 Commission, the Climate Commission, if possible, to work on something related to that.
Thanks, Katie. Yeah, I think that would be great. And yeah, I definitely think there's some best practices out there in the intersection of health equity and housing and how all that works together that we could definitely take a look at. So that sounds exciting. Anyone else have any thoughts now? I think Kellen definitely wants to touch on this again when he's back. So maybe we could just use this as a chance to get the ball moving in our heads, and come for the next meeting with more when Kellen's back. But anything else?
The other was to see, and I don't have anything formulated, so, but as a follow-up to all of the work that was done in regards to ongoing monitoring and oversight of our affordable housing units as a result of the Serrano situation. And so I'm not 100% sure where we left off. You know, I know where we left off in terms of all the recommendations that were put forth, but I don't know where we left off in terms of the implementation of those and sort of where they've gone since we made the report. So sort of follow through on that and making sure that it's actually going from recommendation to action.
Sounds great. Okay. All right, so yeah, I think that the next meeting we can discuss more, but appreciate everyone's thoughts. I think Helen will be excited that we have some drafts down. Okay, Alex, I think you have the next agenda item, which is development updates.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Let me share my screen real quick. I don't have any substantive updates tonight for development updates other than once again looking at our meetings roster and making sure that we are covered at the other meetings that involve housing policies and projects. So it is December 7th now, so obviously we do not have any reps for Goodwill or the Crystal City Block Plan W. If we have anyone interested, please let me know on that, both a rep and an alternate. So both of those meetings are next week. One is a long-range planning commission meeting, and the other is a site plan review commission meeting. And then other than that, I think we do now need a new person for the Public Facilities Review Committee now that Laura is no longer on the commission. So don't want to pressure anyone now, but if anyone's available to take on any of those, please let me know or send me an email at a later time so that the commission gets the foot in the door early on all of these projects. That is it for development updates, unless maybe Mike, is that a question for me?
I have an update on Melwood if the commission would like to hear it from long range planning.
Yes, please.
Okay, so I think it was last week I attended the Tier 2 LRPC, so just really the high level, like scope type of call. It was, looking at my notes here, it's primarily focused on building height, density, the building form and scale, some of the transitions, of course, the use mix, and then the impacts to the adjacent park. So it's on the same parcel as a current park. I think it was Nellie Custis Park. The meeting was well attended. The county got about 240 people that participated in public engagement at some point. Of course, at the meeting, there were comments on both sides. Just for commissioners' reference, this is a 100% committed affordable property for those with disabilities. So I found it to be a really admirable LRPC project to participate in. We learned that it was about 0.7 miles away from the metro station. I also thought that was pretty cool. It's currently a school. The developer is going to be keeping the school on site. And again, it's located right next to a park. There's a lot of discussion about, if the designers could immerse Nellie Custis Park and then the new residential building together. There's also a conversation about preserving the facade of the school. I guess it's either 90 or 100 years old, and there might be some history there that I asked about. There's a lot of discussion around the height as well, which was what drove a lot of the people to attend. It ranged all the way up to 60 feet. So at the LRPC meeting, the committee ultimately decided to keep the height open to build up to 60 feet for now, but it could change later. So they could currently go up to 5 stories, but as the process works through the other phases and other committees, again, it could change. And then lastly, they're just requesting a zoning amendment proposal to transition the parcel from low medium residential GLUP designation and to change parcel B, where the school is currently located, from RC or R6, which limits height to 35, taking it to RA8 to 18, sorry, RA8 through 18, which could again allow them to build up to 60 feet. So that was Melwood.
Thanks, Mike.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, Doris.
I was just wondering because I wasn't able to be there last week, although I am the rep from the Disability Commission, and I'm curious whether anybody has raised a question that has occurred to my mind, which is the way I understand the plans for the residential building are that a significant portion, if not all, will be available priority for Melwood, program participants in their employment programs. And so the question that I had was, would their plans, require that the folks be residents, that the people who secure those units will be Arlington residents rather than, say, Melwood residents who would come to this facility from the district or from Maryland, where their headquarters base is, and move into units they're being built here in Arlington for Arlington individuals with disabilities who are Arlingtonians. Did that ever come up in any discussion? Because I was actually going to bring that concern up, that since they're units located here in Arlington and we need affordable, accessible units for Arlingtonians, whether that would be something that should be considered as a condition of some kind.
That didn't come up at the LRPC meeting, but there may be staff that might be able to answer that, or it might be a developer question, but it didn't come up at the LRPC meeting.
Right, and the only other thing is, so if no matter who would take those units, whether when an individual who is now currently an employee of Melwood gets a better job, for example, someplace else, does that mean they'll have to give up that unit? So if they go from a subsidized, sheltered position to a truly competitive position in the public or private sector, would they lose their apartment because they're no longer Melwood clients? That I think is a very important question to be asking.
Yeah, I agree. And I believe the public engagement process is still open. And I know that, based off of what I saw at the meeting, the developer is very interested in hearing that type of feedback. So I'd be happy to maybe provide a connect with the developer from, the information that was presented, unless staff, has a better, understanding of how to answer that.
Yeah, particularly that second question. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know much about the Melwood site, but I would be happy to connect you with the person that could get all of those answers for you, Doris.
Well, because I particularly am concerned that people might lose, from the standpoint of the organization that I work for, the Independent Center of Northern Virginia, as a Center for Independent Living run by people with disabilities, it's truly a concern that housing could be tied to employment, just like housing tied to services. You have to be a person receiving our services in order to remain in our housing is really, we believe, a regressive kind of policy from a civil rights standpoint. So I'd appreciate that information.
Thank you, Doris, and thanks, Commissioner Heminger. Alex, where is the Goodwill SPRC meeting, or I guess which Goodwill is it about?
That is a good question. Let me bring it up.
I think it's Route 50.
Yeah, it's right on Route 50, and I'm not sure what the other road is.
Glebe Road.
Glebe?
Yeah, Glebe Road.
Yeah, so there it is, right there.
Okay, I can go to that one.
Okay, awesome. I will put you in there. Okay, great. And if any other commissioners are able to go to the Crystal City Block Plan, LRPC, or are interested in any other meetings, just let me know and I'll add you to the list. That is it for development updates this evening.
Great. Okay, I think we are at the end or near the end. I think we have subcommittee reports. Does anyone have any updates? I think that usually is Commissioner Surface. I see a shaking of the head. Okay, great. And the only other thing is, I just wanted to, for public record, acknowledge that we did receive, I think it's Wells Harnell's support for the Barcroft project, and he wanted to align himself with Alice and Ann's comments and also support the 255 aspirational goal. So thank you, Wells, if you're listening, or if not, thank you anyway. We appreciate that, and apologies if your comments registration got lost. The only other thing is, so there is a county board meeting next Saturday. I am the Housing Commission rep for next week, so since we voted to write a letter on the 255 aspirational goal, I will speak at the meeting and just share that the Housing Commission supports that. And we can review the letter language offline like we do and just make sure everyone's good with that. All right. Alex, anything else?
Nope, that is it. You just have to say meeting adjourned now and we are good.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Happy holidays. Meeting's adjourned.
Cheers. Take care.
Good night.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you so much.
Night, everybody.
Good night.